Hello, everyone, and welcome to Schwab Coaching. My name is Cameron May. I'm a Senior Manager of Trading and Derivatives Education here at Schwab, and this is Getting Started with Thinkorswim. And today I decided I'm going to be kind of aggressive with this delivery of the discussion. We're going to be looking at a range of tools available to a would-be stock trader on Thinkorswim. We're going to start with just having an idea for placing a stock trade, and we're going to move right on through all the way to executing that trade and tracking it after it's closed. So a whole bunch of tools that we're going to be discussing today. Should be a great presentation. I hope you're set for a great event. But before we can get to that, though, let me first of all say hello to everybody who's already chatting in. Great to see all my favorite my favorite YouTubers out there. Hello there, Kurt and Ricebert, Vincent, John, Sharon, Chuck, Eva, Brown Buffalo, everybody else. Thanks for joining us week after week. I always appreciate your attendance and your contributions to these discussions. If you're here for the very first time, I want to welcome you as well. And if you're watching on the YouTube archive after the fact, enjoy the presentation, but be aware that you're invited to join us in a live discussion. This is a Wednesday webcast series, kicks off promptly at 2 Eastern time. We'd love to have you here in the live stream audience. But for an extra benefit for our live stream audience members, we also have my very good friend, Mike Fairborn. He's going to be hanging out in the chats. He's going to be addressing any questions that I can't get to, as long as those questions aren't too far off topic. Mike's there to pick up my slack. Thanks for being there, Mike. Definitely appreciate it. And Mike and I would also like to issue an invitation to everybody watching. If you have an account with X, give us a follow on that platform. It's the best place to connect with your favorite presenters in between these live streams. So you can find Mike on X at Mike Fairborn CS. You can find me there. My handle is at Cameron May CS. All right, so let's get into this discussion of tools that are there to support stock trading on Thinkorswim. But as we do, of course, we need to consider the risks associated with doing these sorts of things. These are important disclosures, so bear them in mind. The information here is for general informational purposes only and should not be considered an individualized recommendation or endorsement of any particular security, chart pattern, or investment strategy. Options carry a high level of risk and are not suitable for all investors. Schwab does not recommend the use of technical analysis as a sole means of investment research. Investing involves risks, including the loss of principal, and any investment decision you make in your self-directed account is solely your responsibility. All right, so let's set an agenda for what we're going to be covering today. This is a tool demonstration using the Thinkorswim desktop platform. And so what we want to do is just start with an idea, the idea of buying a stock. So we're going to move through a 5-step process from idea to, uh-oh, it's tax time. How do I go back and get the information on that stock trade I once did? So we're going to start with how do we find stocks using the tools on Thinkorswim. Then we're going to move on to planning a stock trade using the tools on Thinkorswim. Then we're going to talk about placing the orders to put the trade into practice. Then we're going to track the progress of that stock trade. And after it's closed, we want to see how do we go back and find the information about that stock trade that we once did to get ready for the reporting if that's what we're ultimately going to do. Well, if it's in an account that requires reporting. Anyway, but let's go right to Thinkorswim desktop. So if you haven't used this software before, this is software that can be downloaded free of charge from within your Schwab Online account. You just log in, go to the Trade tab, and look for Thinkorswim in the drop-down menu. Download the software, and then you can just access it using your Schwab username and password. But here we find ourselves in our trading platform, and let's say that our trader is thinking, I might want to go buy a stock. Let's start to build out our portfolio. So how do we find a stock, first of all? Well, we might run a search. We might conduct a filter. On Thinkorswim, it's referred to as a scan. So we're going to go do a scan to kick things off. And since we're talking about stocks today, we're going to use the Stock Hacker. And this takes us to this empty skeleton of a template for running a search on Thinkorswim. And this tool enables the searcher to tell Thinkorswim the kinds of stocks that they are interested in buying, and then Thinkorswim will go out and retrieve those stocks, and the trader can proceed on to the next step, which is planning the trade. But let's talk about how to run a search first. Now, I've done in-depth discussions of each of these 5 steps before. So if you want to see a more in-depth usage of the scan function, you can go find the previous webcast on that topic. If you want to see, as we move on to, let's say, step 2, which is planning the trade, and we're going to be doing that using stock charts. If you want to see an in-depth presentation just on stock charts, you can find that as well. For each of those, just make sure, first of all, that you are subscribed to our Trader Talks channel on YouTube. It's called Trader Talks Schwab Coaching Webcasts, and you can find the playlist for these previous discussions right here. So as I click on that, pardon me, and as I scroll down just a little bit, you'll see right here, new to Thinkorswim, start here. I've actually put together a playlist of 8 lessons to introduce the trader to each of the functions of Thinkorswim in good detail. So for example, if we wanted to talk about scanning for stocks, you could go right here to lesson 5. If we want to focus our time on using Thinkorswim charts, lesson 4 addresses those, okay? But let's go back to Thinkorswim and start to build a search. Now, starting up here in the upper left, we're going to move from the upper left down to the lower right. Let's start to tell Thinkorswim what we're looking for. Pardon me, voice is struggling just a little bit. But the first thing I want to point out here is that we can scan all stocks, or we can be very specific. How about for this discussion, let's say that our trader is looking to add a stock from a specific sector of the marketplace. So one sector that's pulled back recently, maybe starting to show a little bit of strength, is the financial sector. So maybe our investor wants to look in that financial sector. Let's just look through all financials stocks. So this is now going to be a targeted scan of a corner of the marketplace. Now we just need to tell what kinds of stocks in that sector might the trader be looking for. Oh, by default, we have a few menus to choose from here. We can choose criteria that describe that stock. And let's say, first of all, maybe our investor has a preference for very large companies, large capitalization. I'm going to slide up here to market cap, $sign M. That means in millions of dollars. And market capitalization just literally means how big the company is. We take the number of shares, multiply it by the price per share. That describes the size of the company. A company that's priced at $100 per share, if there are a million shares trading, that's a $100 million company. Well, there are some huge companies out there. Let's say that our trader is interested in looking for, let's say those companies, $50 billion or larger. That would be 50,000 million. 50 billion. You can see over here on our histogram, there are only a relative few, as a matter of fact, only 82 $50 billion companies in this financial sector. All right. Well, let's start to narrow that further. And let's say that our trader also has, let's say a preferred price per share. You know, some traders like to look for the higher price stocks. Others prefer the lower price stocks. Let's say that our would-be trader here is looking for something comparatively higher in price, staying away from the lower price stocks, which may have some higher volatility. Not every stock is going to be that way. But one way to filter for that is using a criteria known as the mark. That's the market price of the stock. And let's just set a minimum of $50 per share here. And we have about 329 companies that might meet that criteria. Let's add just a couple more, but what you'll see pretty quickly is that the intersection of companies that meet all of our criteria is going to narrow very quickly. So how about we look for earnings? Not every company out there is actually generating profits on a regular basis. So how about we choose from our menu here, EPS, earnings per share. And let's say, if we set the minimum at $50 per share, what if we set a minimum earnings per share of $5? All right. So that's just going to make sure that we're at least profitable to some extent. Now, another measure of that profitability might be some metric like the net profit margin. As a matter of fact, we're not stuck with just the choices here in this menu. We can add other filters using this plus add filter over here, and we can choose stocks, what that would do is just give us this same menu again. We could do a filter for options. We could also look for fundamentals. That's the health of the company behind this stock. Or we could do what are called study filters, which are specific criteria relating to behaviors on a stock chart. But I'm just going to choose a fundamental filter here. Let's add one more. And, we were talking about profitability. How about we go down to net profit margin? Again, not every company is going to be profitable. What if our traders are looking for, let's say, a minimum of, for every dollar generated in revenue, they're looking for at least 20% profit on that. So 20 cents on the dollar in profit. That's a pretty high metric, actually. We'll see what we get for matches here. But the point here is the trader can be pretty precise with describing what it is they're interested in finding and potentially investing in. So this is how we find stocks to trade. So let me just click scan here. And in that financial sector, okay, there are, about a dozen companies that are $50 billion companies priced at least $50 per share, generating at least $5 in earnings per share over the last 12 months. And they're operating right now with a 20% net profit margin or greater. So looks like we have a JP Morgan at the top. I believe we already have a position in that in one of our webcast series. So let me just go here to Visa. Let's say the trader is ready to start to plan a trade. Maybe this is a qualified company in the way that they have described qualified. It's up to the individual trader to determine for themselves what's important to them as far as, qualified potential investment candidate. Well, now let's go use charts to maybe make a plan for a trade. And I'm just going to use Visa as our example. So let's go to our charts. Let's load up Visa, symbol V in the upper left. And there are a number of ways that traders might use charts to plan a trade. Again, if you need some deeper instruction in how to use charts, you can go to that series that I showed you. Lesson 4 is going to talk about using charts. But you also may want to check out a webcast series called Getting Started with Technical Analysis, which examines what chartists look for. How does a chartist actually see a chart? All right. But there are a couple of ways, conceptually, that a trader might start to plan a trade. One is to apply their own discretion. So, for example, for some traders, they might look at a chart like Visa and say to themselves, well, as long as this thing is still going down, and they might draw a physical line on a chart or just envision it, but as long as we're still going down, the trader might avoid entry into this stock. But if the stock starts to show strength, reversing course, maybe that's when they might start making a plan to enter. Now, as a stock is moving higher, they might draw another line here across those lows as what we'd call a price floor or price support, and look to maybe enter as we get relatively close to those lows. So this is sort of making trading decisions on sort of a discretionary basis. For others, though, they might incorporate tools that are built into the charts to potentially assist them with making these decisions. Hopefully to automate that process, make it a little bit less discretionary. So let me just put on a couple of commonly used tools. Not every trader uses these, and not always in this combination that I'm about to show. But when we're drawing lines, we just choose our line tool down here from our charts, chart tools. And I've selected this trend line tool. And to draw a line, just click once to start drawing a line, click again to end the line. And if we want to get rid of a line, we can just right click on it and remove a drawing, or just clear the whole drawing set. I'm going to choose clear the whole drawing set to get rid of both of those. And now let's instead look at maybe automating the process of making trade decisions. Let's go up here to our edit studies, and this is where a study or a technical indicator might be added to the chart. Eva says, Cam, would you consider the difference between earnings per share and PE as value versus profit or something else? So Eva, I'm not going to go too far into making sort of qualitative decisions about different potential fundamental criteria. That would be sort of getting off in the weeds of teaching how investing is done. I want to talk more about the tools, if that's okay. Today's more about navigation rather than instruction on, that sort of a thing. It's a legitimate question. I just want to keep it sort of focused on the tools. In any case, let's go up here and add a study. Now, I'm going to use a couple of example studies, but really my intent here is just to show where to find the studies. So I'm going to go up here and click on the little flask icon. That's our Edit Studies icon. And you can see a whole list of potential studies. There are over 400 here. Yeah, a lot of choices. Some of the more common ones are simple moving averages. Let me bring up simple moving average. This is one that some traders will use to identify trend and possible price lows and highs or floors and ceilings. So let's add that to our chart. And let's possibly also add a momentum indicator like a MACD histogram. So we can go down in alphabetical order and find our intended studies, or we can just start to type in a keyword and find them that way. So there's our MACD histogram. Let's add that to our chart. And before I click OK, by default, or before I click Apply, by default, Thinkorswim uses a pretty short-term simple moving average. Let's extend that one out a little bit. Let's click on the little gear icon. So yes, most technical studies are customizable on Thinkorswim. And we can change the length of our moving average to, let's say, 50. That means that instead of using just 9 days of data to calculate our indicator, it's going to use 50 days. In any case, let's click OK and click Apply. But whichever indicators we choose, we now know how we can find those on Thinkorswim charts. Let's apply that to our chart and click OK. And let's see actually, matter of fact, this is interesting. Boy, that's really close to crossing above the 50. No, it's fine. I'll just leave it right there. I was going to potentially even look at 100. It's not what I wanted to click on. Let's go back up here, see what a 100 looks like. A little bit longer term trend line. Click Apply, click OK. For those that are new to this is going to be a little bit slower to change direction. And it might allow them, a little bit, it won't generate quite as many buy and sell signals. But in any case, our trader might use a trend line like this to identify which direction a stock is likely heading. And it also might act as a potential price floor. Now, a MACD histogram like this might be an indication of short-term momentum to indicate whether stock is coming down from recent highs or moving up from recent lows. And so let's say our trader looks at this combination. They say, well, looks like we have an upward trend. We have price that's pulled down close to our trend line. And our MACD histogram is starting to rise from a low, indicating maybe the momentum has shifted from this recent selling to possible new buying. Maybe we're starting in a new upward cycle. It's not a guarantee that we're going to go higher from here. But the point was, how do we find these sorts of tools on Thinkorswim? Also, could this be used on different time frames? Could we switch the time frame up here to, let's say, a minute-by-minute chart or a week-by-week chart? We could. I'm just going to use this daily chart as our example. And let's say that our trader has found a stock that's qualified according to what they think are important metrics for the company using that scan tool. And they've used their charts now to identify that it looks like maybe this is time to buy the stock. Well, let's go buy the stock. How do we put that into practice? I'm going to do a few things here because sometimes the trader just buys a stock because they think it's time. Other times the trader will buy the stock, but they want to manage the downside to some extent. And yet still other times, trader will buy the stock with a plan for the downside and a plan for the upside. So how about let's just go buy the stock right now. When Ed says 9 days always seems strange to me, wouldn't 10 be better? Wouldn't 10 be 2 weeks of trading? Yeah, Ed, that's fine. Yep, and I can't go too far into that, but 9 days just accounts for the fact that you have occasional holidays and stuff like that. But yeah, can be a preference thing. Anyway, let's go place a trade. So obviously if we want to place a trade, we're going to go to the trade tab. Now, the trade tab is going to bring up a whole chain of what we call options down here. It's a chain for trading options, but we're trading a stock. So we're going to look at this column, this row right up at the top. And to place a buy order on Thinkorswim, all we really need to do is go to the ask price, ask X means ask price, and click directly on that price. And that's going to bring up actually a complete buy order right down at the bottom. Now I've changed my default so it brings up just an order to buy 10 shares by default. You can customize that right up here under the general settings for the platform. If we were to change our settings here under the order defaults, we could say, you know what, let's do a default of 100 shares for stocks. And then from here forward, anytime we go to place a stock order, it's going to be 100 shares instead of 10. So how about for this example, let's leave it at 10. It's a $337 stock. That would be a $3,300 potential investment. And let's buy those shares. Okay? So if we want to buy shares, we could actually submit the order just exactly as it popped up here. What that would be is an order, in this case, to buy 10 shares of Visa at a limit price of whatever it happens to be at the moment. So a limit price just means I don't want to pay more than this price. That's my limit. So if we put in, let's say, for example, let's round this up a little bit. 338 bucks. That's putting a cap on how much we're willing to spend on the shares. If the shares cost more than that, the order just doesn't fill. Okay? Or we could choose what's called a market order. Market order means I'm willing to pay whatever it takes to get 10 shares of this stock. And it might be $337.82. It might be more than that. It might be less than that. That's what I'm going to do here. Let's submit this as a market order. Now, one other common change that's made to orders is what's known as the time in force. How long do we want this order to remain in force if it doesn't fill right away? Well, when placing an entry order, it's quite common to just submit it as a day order, meaning fill it right now today, fill it today, or just let it cancel at the end of the day. For exit orders, it's quite common to use a good till canceled order because we don't know when we might exit. It may be tomorrow. It might be 3 weeks from now. Let's put in a sell order, an exit order that will just remain in effect until it's filled, if it ever fills. Okay, but in this case, we're going to put in a buy order as a day order. Let's just confirm and send. Buying 10 shares of Visa at the market price. We'll see what we wind up paying. Look at this price actually fell a little bit. I know it's actually about the same. There's no commission on this trade, but there can be on some types of trades. And just remember that with market orders, prices can change quickly in fast market conditions, resulting in execution prices that can be different from the quotes displayed at order entry. Yeah, might have to pay a different price than what we thought. So let's send this order off and give it just a moment. Let's wait for that to bling. It'll tell us that the order filled here in just a moment. But that's how we find stocks. There's an introduction to some of the tools that can be used in planning a trade. Now we've actually entered the order, but I said for some traders, they just go buy the stock. For others, though, they have a preference for making a plan in advance for when they would sell the stock to take losses or sell the stock to take their gains if they happen to manifest. So let's go back here to our charts. And for some traders, they might look at, well, we think the stock is going to go up, in which case, great, but stocks can certainly have a mind of their own. What if this stock goes down? Well, one potential line in the sand that a trader might draw is if we start to reach down below recent lows, especially, if we start to get below recent lows and we get below a trend line, traders might say, yeah, at that point, maybe we just want to get out of this trade. So what if we wanted to place an exit to get us out? Let's say if the stock fell down here to 320 bucks. So we just bought at 338-ish. It was actually 337 and change. What if the trader wants to get out if we fall down below 320? Well, they can actually place what's called a stop order. That means the way that I think about it is stop the bleeding. I want to be off this bus. It's going the wrong direction. Anyway, kind of mixing my metaphors there. But let's go place an order to sell our shares of Visa if it happens to fall down to 320. Now we can do that either from the trade tab, or we're going to do it on the monitor tab. I'm going to stick here with the trade tab for right now. And to place a sell order for a stock, we just click on the bid price. What we need to do is make sure that the quantity matches. Remember, I just changed my default quantity. I only bought 10 shares. My default quantity is now 100 shares. So let's dial that down to 10. And I'm going to enter this order as what's called a stop order. Stop order again means, hey, it's going the wrong direction. Stop, let me out of this. Okay. And we decided, let's put in a price at 320 bucks. Okay, now that order, we're going to make that a good till canceled order, because is it likely to get down to $320 today? Unlikely. Only an hour and a half of trading left. Could it happen tomorrow? Maybe. Is it possible it doesn't ever really happen? That's a possibility. But if this stock ever reaches down to 320, that will trigger a sell order to go into effect to get us out of this trade. So let's click confirm and send. And notice, as long as I do this in the same account where the Visa position is already held, I don't need to tell it that I'm adding this to that other position. That just automatically happens. But I'm going to click confirm and send, and we're going to put in this order to sell at a stop price of 320. There's not a commission if this gets triggered. Just remember, with stop orders, there's no guarantee that the execution price, that would be how much we receive for the shares, will be equal to or near what's called the activation price. So, in other words, if the stock falls to 320, that kicks off a sell order to be filled at a market price. Now, if the stock happens to fall hard and it goes down below 320, that will trigger the sell order, but we could sell for less than 320. We have to be aware of that. That's what this is saying. But let me send this order off. And now we have a sell order in effect. If we go to our monitor tab, okay, time to switch up gears here a little bit. We've looked at the tools that support the effort to find stocks to buy. We've looked at tools that support the effort to plan a stock trade. We've looked at the tools that allow us to put the trade plan into effect. Well, now how do we keep an eye on that position that we just established? Oh, and thank you, Eva, for calling that out. I'll do that. Yeah, we're going to be using something called the monitor tab. We want to monitor the progress of our existing positions. So here we'll go to the monitor tab, and as we do that, I'm going to hit pause on the discussion for just a moment, because as Eva just pointed out, there is a survey for those that are watching this live. So if you'd like to give me some feedback, and I would ask you, please do that. Click on that survey link right now and then fill the survey out when the webcast is over. But if you've never filled out one of our surveys before, they're super short. 2 multiple choice comments, and if you want to take a little extra time, you can also, 2 multiple choice questions. And then if you want to take a little extra time, you can fill in a comment box and a suggestion box if you like. But I just promise you, if you fill out those surveys, I read through that data, I read the comments, it helps. Okay, so thank you for doing that for me. But back to our trade, let's talk about the tools that help us follow the progress of our trades. So we're monitoring the progress of this position that we just took. So we're going to go to the monitor tab, and you'll notice down here at the bottom is that new position. Now, I've added a few custom columns, but a few that most traders will like to keep an eye on right out of the gates are the profit and loss open and the profit and loss day columns. Profit and loss open means how much have I made or lost since I started this trade, whether it was today or 2 months ago. Profit or loss today is how much has that overall progress changed just today. So both of these are going to match on Visa since we just entered this position. Look at this, we're down 20 cents right now. But these other trades, we can see, okay, on our applied materials position, we're up $125 today, and that's included in a running total of $662.50. So this is where we can come to track the progress of our positions. And there are customizable columns here that we could change if you want your layout to look more like mine, for example. But I'm not going to spend a lot of time examining those tools because I've done that, again, in that webcast series. So if you want to learn more about monitoring stocks in greater detail, make sure you check out lesson 2 here using the thinkorswim Monitor tab. So one more time, if you don't know how to find this, you'd go to YouTube, look for Trader Talks Schwab Coaching Webcast. Make sure that you're subscribed as you do this. But you'd go to Playlists, and you'd look for the playlist for this webcast series, Getting Started with Thinkorswim, which happens to be, I'm going to zip all the way down to the bottom here. There we go, Getting Started with Thinkorswim. All right. Anyway, back to our demonstration. So we can now see we own 10 shares of Visa. Oh, look at this. We slipped into profit territory for the day and overall. And you can see that sell order that we have over here. Well, I told you, for some traders, they buy a stock and they have a plan for where they want to sell if the stock goes the wrong direction. Well, for others, they want a plan that covers both the wrong direction and the right direction. So I'm going to take this sell order, cancel it. Notice you can see that if we click on that, it gives me the details right here. And I can right-click on those details and cancel the order right there. Or if we go up here to the top, you'll see an area that says working orders. So I placed this order. It hasn't filled. It's just working. If I click on that, I can see there's my Visa order to sell if we fall down to 320. I'm going to right-click on that and just cancel it. And it says, okay, Cameron, that's canceled. Was there a commission charge for that? No. As a stock trade, there wouldn't have been a commission charged in any case. But let's go back to our charts and make a plan not just to manage the downside, but possibly also the upside. And it looks like recently, Visa reached as high as right around, what did we get to? About what was the absolute high up there? About 366. Let's round that down to 365. Okay, I'm going to draw in a line here just to help you visualize what I'm planning. Let's say that our trader sees the stock, nice upward trend. It's pulled down to an apparent price floor. It's starting to rise again. They think it's going to go high. Well, how high might it go? Well, maybe it'll just go to previous highs. And if it does, and we bought it at 338-ish, and we're able to sell at 365-ish, that would be almost a $30 profit. What, about $27? Or it might go down, ultimately hitting our planned stop level. So let's put in 2 sell orders. One to take profits if we can get there. The other one to take losses if we happen to fall down there first. So let's go to our trade tab. And I'm going to put in what's known as a first triggers. Actually, I'm going to do this a different way. Since we've already shown how to place an order on the trade tab, let's go to the monitor tab. Let's go down to our existing position, and I'm going to right-click on that, and that gives me the option to create a closing order. And in this case, I'm going to choose, instead of just a stop, I'm going to choose an OCO bracket. OCO bracket means one order cancels the other order if it happens to fill. So if we happen to go up and hit our target price, it would cancel our stop. If we happen to fall down to our stop level, it would cancel our target. So here are 2 orders to sell our 10 shares. The first one is a limit order. That is going to be our target order at 365 for this example. Our second order is a stop order. So that we're now familiar with. Let's put in 320. And for both of those, we're going to make those good till canceled orders. There we go. That's how we create an order to manage both potential sides of the trade. Limit order means I want to sell for 365 bucks. That's my limit. It's the lowest price I'll accept, not a penny less. Stop means, uh-oh, it's falling the wrong direction. Stop, get me out. Okay, so let's click confirm and send. We're going to sell if we can reach to 365 or sell if we drop down to 320. There's another reminder here with these stop orders. No guarantee that the execution price will be equal to or near the activation price. No commission on any of these, but let's send this order off. And so now we're really learning how to find stocks, how to plan trades, how to place trades. We're starting to see how to monitor the progress of those trades. So there's really one thing left to do. What if we have placed a trade, it has filled, and now we're somewhere down the line and we need to go back and find the details of those trades? Let me do this. With this Visa order, I'm going to cancel these 2 sell orders and just sell the stock right now. Okay, just to be done. So remember, we can go up here and we can cancel those orders, or we can come down here and we can cancel those orders. Let's use this one for this example. Right click, let's cancel that OCO group. So now there are no sell orders on the stock. Let's just envision trade is gone. Let's be optimistic. Let's say the trade went well. And as a matter of fact, it's doing okay right now. I'm going to sell this right now by right-clicking, and let's create a closing order and just sell these shares. Okay. Let's change this to a market order, meaning I'll just accept whatever the market offers to get out of this. Click confirm and send. With market orders, prices can change quickly in fast market conditions, resulting in execution prices that can be different from the quotes displayed at order entry. So we're going to sell our 10 shares of Visa, just the market price, no commission here. Let's send that. And we're now out. 338.55, as memory serves me. We bought for 337 and change. So a little bit of a profit there. So let's put our, Chuck says, Cameron, my drop down does not show OCO. So now what do I do? Chuck, unfortunately, I can't see exactly what you're doing from your end, so I would be speculating. If you ever have any issues, you need some help entering things, you can go to help, and there's a number right there to call, okay? But in any case, and I can't walk individuals through trades anyway. There's this one of the rules I have to abide by. But how do we find these trades? Let's say it's tax time. Time to go gather the information about Visa. Well, if you were, let's say, trying to retrieve historical information from your bank, you'd say, hi, I need my bank statement so I can see all those transactions I had. Same deal with your brokerage account. You go to your account statement. So we can go to account statement, and this is the tool that allows us to check for current and historical transactions on our account. And by default, this is going to be set to just 1 day back. Okay. So this right now is already going to be showing Visa. It's the only trade that we've placed. But if we need to look further back, we can adjust that. We can use defaults in the drop-down menu here, 1 day back, 7 days back, 30 days back. We can type in a different quantity and just hit enter on our keyboard, and that's going to bring up all the transactions for the last 60 days, or we can look for a specific range of time. Now, when we select a large number of days or a wide range of time, it gets awfully cluttery. There's a whole bunch of transactions in here that we're not interested in this example. So like Apple and Amgen and Microsoft and Gilead. Well, a final filter I wanted to point out here that can help us zero in on the stock that we had the keen interest in retrieving that information is just type in the symbol right there. So we can just look back through any number of days, but keeping it just to a specific symbol. And then it's easier to follow the chronology of events here. So I can see, oh, okay, so I bought 10 shares for $337.81. I sold those shares for $338.55. Now I can track my trade history, I can see my order history, I can see what's happened with my cash over time, and check other elements of historical data. But that is the tool that I wanted to show to sort of close the loop on this discussion. So we've gone through how to find stocks, how to use the tools. Well, at least we've learned where to find the tools that support planning a trade. We've learned where to find the tools that support placing the trade. We've learned to find the tools that support tracking the trade, and we know where to find the tools for following up on those trades at a later date. That was a lot. I knew it was going to be a lot, but I thought it was important to have this discussion so that we go from A to Z on trading stocks using the thinkorswim desktop platform. So many years, I think. That's where you'd scroll down to the bottom and look for this playlist, Getting Started with Thinkorswim. All right. Looks like we lost the stream there, but okay, but we're back online. In any case, make sure that you're subscribed to our channel. If you have an account with X, make sure that you're also following your favorite presenters on that platform. You can find Mike on X at Mike Fairborn CS. You can find me on X. Let me show you that. On X, this is who you're looking for right there. That's what the profile image looks like. You can see this is my background. But make sure you are precise with who you're following on social media. Social media can be fabulous, but it's full of a bunch of fakers as well. So make sure when you're looking for me, it is at Cameron May CS, no other variation. With Mike Fairborn, it's at Mike Fairborn CS, no other variation. Then you know you're dealing with the right gentleman. In any case, yeah, that's the best place to connect with me. Maybe you can even give me your thoughts on this poll that I'm conducting right now. Hey, approximately how many of our videos on our Trader Talk Schwab Coaching Webcast YouTube channel have you watched already? Is it less than 10? Is it 10 to 50? Is it more than 50? Or is it you just discovering that we have these things on YouTube? This will be interesting. I'm going to keep an eye on that. Anyway, yeah, that's the best place to connect with us in between these live streams. But everybody, thanks for giving me your time today. This is what we do on Wednesdays for our discussion of getting started with Thinkorswim. I hope that you'll put it in your calendar to join me each Wednesday. I also have other webcasts all throughout the week. Each day of the week, as long as the markets are open, as long as I'm on vacation, I'm delivering a webcast on one topic or another, so look for me on the calendar. Also, thank you to everybody who's already clicked the like button. I always like to look over there and I see, yeah, 36 people have already clicked that thumbs up. That's always appreciated. It's your way of applauding your presenter. It also gives me a boost in the YouTube algorithm for my webcast. Helps more people find this stuff so they can learn these kinds of tools. So thank you for doing that. Last thought is go fill out that survey if you would. That would be fabulous. Thanks, Mike, for reposting that. But everybody, I will see you in a future webcast. I'll also look for you on X, but whenever I see you again, until that moment arrives, I want to wish you the very best of luck. Happy trading. Bye-bye.